Hey y'all, welcome to Simple Conversations. This is KJ
Hey, and it's Alice. So pause us for a minute, grab you something to drink, come back, sit down, and be a part of this conversation.
because we have a lot to say. Welcome to Simple Conversations. So, y'all, listen, this is our disclaimer. We're not here to give you any advice or tell you how to live your life.
Well, maybe just a little.
We're still trying to figure this thing out ourselves. Thanks for tuning in. Hey, y'all, welcome back to Simple Conversations where grace meets strength. Hey, Alice.
Hey, KJ, how are you today?
Good. How are you?
I am good. I am good.
Good. For the listeners, it is April 21st, 2021. We don't know when you're listening to this because it'll be valuable no matter what year you're listening to it, but it is April 21st, 2021. So, and we are happy it is springtime.
I actually am looking out my window. I just moved my office downstairs so I can look out the window, and there is a robin's nest right outside my window with four beautiful, very dark blue eggs. Bluer than I think I've ever seen.
That's just so happy. That's so
It is until my sister told me to watch out because snakes, black snakes, like robin eggs. And so I was like,
we didn't need to know that. We did not need to even know that.
So now I'm like,
yeah, I know, right?
Peeking around the windows.
How are things? Listeners, we are back with this series, Amazing Courageous Women. And I am super, super excited about the guest that we have today. So I'm going to take you back to 1995 in Norfolk, Virginia. She was a bank teller, and she was here with her husband. They were from Michigan. He was in the military. And she had her first son, Jacob, and Jacob died. And bless her heart, she still had to give birth to him. But I met her at a support group for families who had lost babies in Norfolk, Virginia. And so it was called Empty Arms. What I didn't know is that out of that meeting, you know how I am, I'm going to get emotional.
That's all right.
I did not realize God was bringing me a lifelong friend.
Yeah.
A friend who could relate, a friend I could relate to. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Amazing friendship. So, interestingly enough, she had a volatile marriage.
Okay.
And but she was always like seriously just a good wife, doing what she knew that she had to do in order to get to the next day. She had two daughters, amazing daughters who are doing big things in the world. She's owned a very successful business. She has scraped by at times. I mean, like really, the divorce was hard. Like it was hard. But she still did what she had to do, working jobs. I mean, it was like this woman could do things. And I'm like, how does she do that? How does she even know how to do that? She might not have known how to do it, but she made it happen. And so, and she did whatever she had to do to make things happen. And she instilled that in both of her daughters, which is huge, huge. So, I mean, that's setting a huge legacy. She, again, has worked many jobs. She's owned a very successful businesses, multiple businesses under one roof. I considered her a business mentor for many years. We bounce ideas off of each other. She was very smart, a businesswoman. She is currently the chief operating officer of Message Makers, where she is in the company of celebrities and high-profile people. And the interesting thing is that I believe that if those celebrities and high profile people even knew half of her story, they would be honored to be in the same room with her. With all of that being said, welcome my dearest friend, Tina Miller.
Thank you so much. You're way too kind, and that's not fair to get me teary-eyed as we're starting this, but I appreciate you and our friendship and how we met equally, if not more.
Yeah. So with all of that being said, tell me a little bit about you.
So I'll tell you about me now, and then we can kind of go back from there. So I am about ready to turn 48 on the 30th, so in a couple weeks, and I'm loving my life right now. My girls are thriving. My youngest is in pre-vet school, her third year, applying for graduate school. And then my oldest, she has a fantastic job. She is close to, she only needs a few more credits to get her bachelor's degree in political science. And she has a music career as well. So I feel very blessed. And like every mom, when somebody asks me about me, I go directly to my kids. But I love my job. I'm just at a place that I feel like I've really got to know myself. I'm at peace. I would love, I'm single. I would love to be with somebody, but I'm okay not being with somebody. And so I have certain requirements that I didn't have before. I've invested in myself enough. I've got through enough mess that, it's going to take a pretty special person to come into my world, and nobody is worth going back to any kind of drama or stress. Like, I'm happy where I'm at, and you either add to that, contribute to that, or, it's just not, the timing isn't right. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm COO at Message Makers, and that role has been a blessing to me. And I'll go into later a little bit, how I got here. But there's something different every day with this job. I don't just end up doing, the operational stuff. It's relationships with the employees, it's with the clients. It's getting into projects, just like all of my other, production and creative crew does as well. And yeah, it's exciting work, and it's a company that they want to do good in this world. And so that's the mission of a lot of the projects that we produce.
Which I think is a great fit for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So go ahead and tell us how you got there.
So I'll go back to, and I'll try to be quick about it, but I'll go back to when we met. So I had been, my husband and I at the time had been trying for over 5 years to have a child. Went through all kinds of fertility drugs and procedures, and nothing was working. So we were thrilled to find out that I was pregnant and that I was having a baby boy. And then along that journey, when I was getting an ultrasound, they had found out that Jacob had a hole in between the chambers of his heart, and so his blue and red bloods were mixing, which was not going to be so much of a problem. They said he'll have surgery in 30 days after he's born. He might not be able to do contact sports, but he should live a pretty normal life. And then they proceeded to tell us, with a couple of the different things that were showing up, multiple things that were showing on the ultrasound, that they thought there might be a chance that he has Down syndrome. And so, I didn't care at that point. I wanted my baby boy, but it is something that was a big change in my marriage. And it, when you deal with tough things, you find out who people really are sometimes. And so, the conversation that I feel like kind of separated us mentally at the time was that he wanted to talk about options, and I thought, what options? And I was devastated. And so it's kind of like my mind frame at that time is I'll raise this boy on my own. I'll go back to Michigan. We were living in Virginia. And so things were weird with us. And then 2 weeks prior to my due date, when I was doing a stress test, they didn't find a heartbeat. And yes, we went through labor, 11 hours of labor. You could hear, they had the ultrasound machine on the lady next door, and I could hear her child's heart beating as I'm giving birth to my child that doesn't have a heartbeat. But really good support system there at the hospital. And then I met you. And so that was wonderful, wonderful. And she even did my hair as a bonus. So that was, that was always nice. But so we moved up to Michigan. He got out of, my husband at the time, he got out of the military. We moved back up to Michigan. That's where both of our families were. And soon after, I was pregnant for my first child, Shelby. And it was a blessing, but it was scary. It was scary as hell, because I thought, what if I go through this again? And so everything went perfect. My doctor knew what we went through and actually broke my water on my due date, which reflects her personality to a T. She's organized and on time. And so then my marriage was struggling soon after that. Had been for a while, but we kept trying to put a Band-Aid on it, fix it, make it work. We actually decided that it was time to separate. And I think that was when Shelby was about 2 years old. And it was one of those instances that, that one last night together, let's, see if we can make it work. And I got pregnant for Chelsea, which she was a blessing in disguise. And I remember I was going to a counselor that had told me at the time, have 911 programmed into your phone, because you may need to hit it some night. And so that's where I was in my life and my marriage. And so when I found out I was pregnant for her, I remember saying to them, it's done. I don't need to come back here anymore. I'm stuck. And, I'm not going to be able to leave. And I had pretty much kind of like, I guess, given up on my marriage, but then given up, like, I'll just stay. And with that second pregnancy, it got unbearable. It's such a weird thing that she's such a blessing, because I really went through hell with my pregnancy with her. I tried to do yoga, whatever I could do to try to bring some peace and comfort in my life, because I knew I was like growing this child in me. And it's so funny, because we always tease that she is so chill, and she acts like she's got like Prozac running through her veins. She's just chill about everything. And I'm like, which is amazing, considering what I went through. But it was a challenge. I remember going to the doctor's office, and I wasn't sure prior to doing this podcast that I was going to share this until this very moment. But I think it's important to share for other women that might be in the same situation right now. Mm-hmm. But I went to the doctor's appointment. Shelby was in the back seat. My husband was driving, and we had argued all the way to the doctor's office. I was 8 months pregnant. And on the way there, I honestly don't even know what the argument was about. But he said that he was going to tie me to a chair and take a gun to his head so close that I would smell and feel the blood and what I did to him for the rest of my life. And then we pulled up to the doctor's office, and I got out and went into the doctor's appointment by myself and just bawled my eyes out to the doctor. I didn't want to go back out to the vehicle. And so, that was hard. I did try to stay and make it work for 2 more years after that. And during that time was when I started doing personal training for a local gym that I was working at. I would bring Shelby with me, open up at 5 a.m. in the morning. And I started getting some, personal training clients. And it was really starting to kind of evolve into a business that I could do aside from that gym. And so I continued to do that. The gym closed down, and I started to take on personal training clients, go out to their house, go out to their workplace. So during that time, I was trying to rediscover myself. I was trying to find some kind of strength left in me. And it was working. I was, proud of myself, and I loved what I was doing. My girls would come with me. I started a toddlers program where I taught them about their muscles and how to eat. And so I tried to do whatever I could do to incorporate my kids, because they were with me all the time. So with that, and again, I don't even know how I came about this, but I decided that I wanted to go further with the fitness thing, and Curve's fitness franchise was exploding at the time. And it was the largest fitness franchise in the world. I don't know if it was that year or a couple years later, but it was exploding. And so I decided I wanted to try to pursue that, and made a very large investment, went down to Waco, Texas, did the training for the franchise, found a place to lease, and things were going great. So from 3 months to the day that I opened my doors, we outgrew the place that we were at, and I had to go find another place, because the city was complaining about parking and too many people like coming through there, which was, a great problem to have. I learned how to, fight the city council at the time, and all of that. So, and so I ended up moving into a larger building, and the person that owned that, I think it was about a year later, and he said, we're going to put the building up for sale. So I don't know if you're interested, and I don't know if somebody that buys it will rent to you. But we just wanted to let you know that. And so I made the decision to go ahead and purchase the building, almost $500,000 building. Scary, scary, scary stuff. And so I did that, and the person that I bought it from, he was like, why don't you expand the business? Why aren't you doing this? Why aren't you doing that? And kind of inspired me to add on to the services in the building. So I rented out to a beauty salon that was downtown. They all moved up to my building. I started a day spa that did massage and tanning and facials and stuff. And so then it was kind of like a one-stop shop. People could come work out, they could get their hair done, and they could, go to the spa. And we reached, I think at that place, we reached about 700 members. I was, on top of the world. I wasn't really concentrating on my marriage. That wasn't working, but I was, being faithful and all of that. And, I had $30,000 in the bank. And I say that now because it's a really big deal to me now. It was a really big deal to me then. And my husband at the time, we went to a boat show, and he said, you got that money in the account. He wanted a boat. He loved to fish. We loved to fish together. And so I remember writing a check for $17,000 for a bass boat for him, and he got that, and he was thrilled. And so that's kind of where we were at the time. And I remember sitting on the back porch grilling. I don't know why this is so specific to me, but he said, I think I want to get a new truck. And I said, I think I want a divorce. And I did, and I had made that decision. And I'll back up because I forgot something really, really important. Prior to that, he came home one day and he said, if you want to do it all, you can do it all. I quit my job. And I forgot about that till this point right now. And he said, we can live off what you're doing and everything like that. And I was like, what? You had the insurance and everything like that. And so then I thought, okay, well, he'll take the kids to school and he'll do this and that, and no, I took the kids to school still and all of that. But back to the grill scene. So I said I wanted a divorce, and there was so many things that happened in between. He was somebody that he wouldn't physically beat me, but he would destroy every single thing around me. And rip the phone out of the wall, say that he was going to go out in the barn and commit suicide. And I would lock me and the kids in the room and sleep in there. And I remember one time, like a little piece of paper slipped under the door, and I thought my heart had started beating, and I thought he did it. Like, he put a note under the door and he went out and killed himself. And it was just a blank piece of paper, which is kind of weird and ironic. And he hadn't. But we went through, a very nasty divorce, and a drawn out battle in court, where I had to relive some of these things that I just talked about. And so the judge recommended that he seek help. And there was 3 requirements that he had to do in order to start seeing the kids. And this was after, various visiting problems. And his parents, I didn't know this till afterwards, his parents met him outside of the courtroom, said, we'll pay for you to get treatment, whatever you have to do, we'll support you in it. And he decided that he didn't want to go that route. And the only time that we went back to court after that was to see if he could get child support lowered. And that was it, So the judge had said there was never a time that she felt 100% about her decision. She wanted to keep, mothers and fathers together, but she said, I'll never question this decision, that he had to do what he had to do to see the kids again. And that was his choice, and I feel like the kids are better off. So went through all that. And around 2008, the economy started diving. And I was to the 10-year renewal of my franchise agreement. My membership had dropped quite a bit because of the economy. I had a large, property tax payment. There was a lot of things going on. I was dealing with migraines because of the stress. And so I made the decision, like, I don't want to renew another 10 years with the economy like this. How do I get out of this? And that was a long, long struggle as well. But at the end of it, I got this call, and it was a consulting firm out of Chicago. And I don't know where they got my name or anything like that, but they said, you've been a successful business owner, and a lot of people could learn from the things that you've learned from. And, we'll pay for you to come to Chicago for a week and go through our training. And so I did that while I still was trying to close out my business and raise my kids on my own. And so they said, you'll go through this thing. It's almost like a 10-day MBA. And then you'll go on a plane for about 3 months, and we'll see how you do. And I was like, how am I going to do that? I'm trying to close my business down. I have personal training clients, and I have 2 kids. And so I remember telling my mom, I really believe in this. I really think that I would be good at this. Will you help me, support me kind of through this? And I don't even think I wasn't out for 3 months, but I busted my ass. And I don't know if you could say that or you could beep it out. And I went out there, and I think the first year after being with the consulting firm, I had received an award for MVP. They didn't have very many women that were working there, and they didn't have mothers, single mothers that were doing it. And I have to give them credit too. They helped me work around things. I would either be on a plane and have my mom helping out, or I would be on the road and trying to drop them off to school, rearrange the appointment with the client. I'll get there at this time, drive 4 hours, come back, have the kids walk home from school. And anyway, it ended up being very successful. I enjoyed the work, helped a lot of business owners. And I did that for about 4 years. And coming back around to the place that I'm at right now, they were one of my clients. I had, sat down and gave them a list. I would go in there for 3 days as an analyst. I should back it up, senior business analyst. And I would tell them things that they're doing wrong with their business and what it was costing them and what it would take to fix it. So basically a report or a map. And sometimes they would say we can get there by ourselves, or sometimes we would bring consultants in. And so I came to Message Makers and did the same thing. And then there was a point that my kids were getting in high school, and I was like, I need to be there more often. They were going through some things and stuff like that. And so kind of towards the end of that, my daughter, my oldest daughter, said to me, I want to try out for American Idol. And I was like, okay, get all the paperwork ready. She had been singing in church and all that, and singing the national anthem everywhere. And so I said, go ahead and fill out the paperwork, and she did. She got everything turned in. And then because of my job at the time, flying out, we would go to my dad's for the summer. So then they could visit with him, and I would fly out of that airport. And so when auditions came around, we had to go to Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia. And so we went with about 10,000 other people in Georgia. And I think they ended up picking, can't remember how many it was, but like, I don't know, 40 or 60 people out of those 10,000 people. Wow. And she was one of them. And then they said, okay, well, you have to come back to Atlanta for the next phase of that. And so we went back home. The kids went back to school, and we would have to trek down to Atlanta 2 more times because there's like you do an audition with almost like 15 executive judges before you actually get in front of like the celebrity judges. And so we did that, and she made it through to Hollywood Week. And I think out of 90,000, they had like 260 something that went to Hollywood Week. So it was a pretty big deal. And she was under 18, so I was needing to go with her. I think she was 15, maybe at the time, 15 or 16, 15, I think. And so I said to them, I have to bring my youngest daughter. I'm a single mom. I don't want to leave her back there. And they made an exception and let me bring her. And we paid for her ticket, and they paid for, ours, and went to Hollywood Week and experienced that. It was, an awesome experience for all of us. And Shelby got to the end of Hollywood Week. So each day they would make a cut, and she was down to when they went to 30 guys and 30 girls. And she mentored with Michael Jackson's voice coach and I can't remember, it was either the Jay Leno band, one of the talk shows, that was the band that was playing. So she got to sing with them, and it was a great experience. And so I was fortunate that my job would let me work around that. They found a business for me to go in Georgia. I don't think we went out to one in California, but soon after that, Shelby got a message from The Voice, and they said, we would like you to do a private audition in Chicago. And so she did that and got to skip the other things. And she made it through to Hollywood Week again, like their Hollywood Week for The Voice. So we went to Burbank, California again for a week. And we had learned a little bit about the business at the time. And they had some stipulations, songs she wrote, they wanted rights, and we were kind of like, we shouldn't do that. So we kind of voiced our opinion on some of that stuff. I don't know if that ended up ultimately having to do with her, not making the cut. But we also said she has a show in Michigan that we sold out tickets we do have to fly back for that. And so it was the night before we had to do that, that they did a cut. But that same night, I got a call from my work that had been so great about working around everything, and said that they had transferred me to another department that was kind of like a department below. It was in sales. And I was furious. I was devastated. I understood, I was kind of like, how did they, make it work for this long? And so we came back, and then I ended up trying the sales thing, didn't like it, and remembered message makers that I had been out to for a client. So I came back and I said, how much of that list have you completed? And he said, none of it. And I was like, well, would you like some help doing that? Because I'm looking to stay local, he's 30 minutes from my house. And he was like, yeah, but we just hired like a director of marketing. I don't really have a position for you. And so I started sending him reports and different things like that. And then he was like, you know what, we'll figure it out. And the first meeting that I went with him, we went to Detroit and we met with the Consulate General of China. And I was like, what is happening here? I'm sitting here, and it was kind of cool because traditionally, a woman wouldn't always be in a meeting like that. And I wasn't there to take notes. And so it was a cool experience. And eventually he said, you're going to have to prove to the team that they need to hire you. And that was after like 6 months. And so I did. And the director of marketing that they had hired at the beginning, she ended up leaving. And so I took the director of marketing position after that. And then it was a couple of years after that our chief operations officer left, and he recommended me on the way out. And so here I am. But so a little something of all these trials that I've been through, and something that I tell my kids is absolutely none of it was a waste, because it made me who I am today. And each time I picked up pieces and learned pieces, who I was, and I would add it to the half a person, that I was, that I needed to build up again. And I do feel like I'm at that point now. I'm at a whole, being a whole person. And that's something that I tell my kids as well. I got married young, and I tell them, don't go into a relationship where you only know half about yourself and they only know half about themselves, because at some point you're going to learn who you are, and you might not be compatible with that person, and you're not going to know who you are at 18 or 19 or 20. But when you get older, that's when you learn who you are, and then you can figure out who you're compatible with. And they really have been great about following that, and doing the same thing. They went through all of this with me. They watched me, and they cried with me, and it's really cool now to see that play out in the person that they've become, and how they get through things and challenges. And I look at everything that I go through as a blessing, because it teaches me something every time. So when something bad happens to me right now, I'm like, okay, I might have 10 seconds of like, oh crap. But I go right into, okay, there's something I'm going to learn here. What am I going to learn? And it's okay, because I'm going to get through this, and then I'm going to learn something I didn't know. And so I am grateful for stuff that happens, because I know that's just an opportunity to learn and grow each time.
That's so good. That's so good. Really. Yeah. That's incredible. If we could all meet our trials and tribulations with what can we learn from this, like a lot of us wouldn't even go through half of the emotional trauma that we put on ourselves, because, trying to figure out why, who, where, what is the lesson I'm supposed to be learning. That's so good.
Yeah.
It reminds me of Graham Cook. I love that, because he talks about James 1. He says, count it all joy when trials come your way. And you're like, what? And he's
Yeah.
like, woohoo, I have a problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's going to develop us and help us to grow. And
Yeah.
I love what you said.
Yeah, and I'm a big believer of also looking back to learn something about that path that you took, and I always find that it's connected in some way. And the most recent thing was, so my daughter is engaged to be married. This July 10th, she's getting married, and so I put them through Catholic school when they were growing up, and I remember one day in church, they would go to church every Wednesday for school, and I would try to attend. And my daughter came home and she said, "Did you tell somebody about Jacob?" And I was like, "What do you mean?" No, this was many years later. And I said, "No." And she said, "Well, it was really weird that they, the intentions, the prayer intentions, one of them was for Jacob Miller." And so I was like, oh, just like I didn't know any other Jacob Miller at the time. Well, fast forward to my daughter getting engaged. So her soon-to-be husband, and our last name is Miller, I will remind you that. They are not related. His name is Jacob Miller.
Wow.
And he was born 20 days before my Jacob was, same year.
Wow.
So weird to me. And so, and that was who they were praying for at the time when we heard that, or she heard that. So
Wow.
everything comes around full circle. And when he knelt to ask her to marry her, she was doing a show at the time. He went up on the stage and knelt down, and I just bawled, because I was just like, I'm right where I'm supposed to be. She's right where we're supposed to be. Like, God is guiding us, and there's, if you open your eyes and you open your ears and you open your mind, you will see the things, the people that he places in your life, the trials that he puts you through, the path that you're supposed to be on, and it's pretty exciting to witness that and receive those blessings.
That's so good.
Yeah, it is.
Okay, so I have one more question. All
Okay.
of that was from one question.
I know. And sorry, I went on, and there's so much.
No, it's so good. It's so good. Like, I just imagine women in different situations right now that could pick out a nugget of so many different things that you said and tuck it in their back pocket for a day when they need it. Like, really, it was so good. Don't apologize. So, but I do want to know is, where do you want to be in 5 years?
So this recently came up. I am, well, today was my last day of a leadership class that I took. And one of the questions the other day was, they asked us not to write or to speak, but to draw where we wanted to be. If we had all the resources and everything that we needed, where would that be? And I usually go right to like my kids. And I started to draw a podium, and me standing at the podium, and I put a little sign in front that said "Empower Women." And it's something that I've always thought of and that I wanted to do. And it also is something that, could inspire my girls. So it was kind of a win-win. And that's absolutely where I see myself. I can vaguely see the path there, but I feel like that it will happen. I don't know how, I'll get there, but that's where I want to be, or that's where I intend to be, is somewhere where I can empower women, speaking, whatever,
That's good. That's good. And I'll just tell you too that, like, I totally think that you are capable of standing at a podium and empowering thousands of people. But don't forget, we can do that at the grocery store too.
Oh, amen. Amen.
That at CVS, and yeah. And you do that every day when you speak life into your girls, So, It doesn't have to be a podium, but I'm
Exactly.
excited when it is a podium. I want the option to buy the first ticket. So.
Okay.
So, what would you want the audience to take away from this conversation? One thing.
Oh, one thing.
One thing.
That's hard because there's a lot of things I would want people to take away from this. I guess that you never know your own strength until you decide to invest in yourself. And I think that we're all capable of coming through trials and tribulations and challenges in our life. But if we can learn that it strengthens us, it teaches us, we just have to invest in ourselves and make that decision, and then never look back.
That's good. That's good. And, Alice and I are huge wisdom seekers, and we like, well, she likes to listen to books and I'd like to read sometimes. But I do love to listen to podcasts to learn, to grow. And I think that the best investment that anyone can ever make is to learn and grow. And so, because when we're learning and growing, then we're becoming better. And once we become better, we do better. And so, best investment ever, our children and ourselves. So this has been amazing. And I appreciate you so much for joining us. But at the very end, we always ask some rapid fire questions. And so Alice is going to ask you some rapid fire questions.
Okay.
Before
I'm ready.
I have one question for you. So I'm a life coach, and I have coached many women. That's my and couples, women and couples. And listening to your story, it would be very easy at any of those junctures that you crossed over from moving away from your family to begin with, to being with a man in the military, to losing a child, to the situation of the marriage, etc. Where do you think the grit or tenacity came from that none of those things stopped you? Because I have clients that struggle immensely to get past one of those things, let alone all of those things. So I would like our audience to know that. Like, where does the grit, like, was it your home life? Do you contribute that to the way your parents raised you? Like, I don't know, like, where would that be for you?
So, I mean, I had a strong mom, and we went through, some stuff when I was a child, and I learned to be pretty independent at that time. She was 17 when she had me, so I remember when she turned 21, and so we kind of grew up together, and she's doing awesome now. But this is going to sound really strange, and I don't even know, like, how this happened, but when I was in high school, I went through some struggles, and I was needing some additional credits, and they said, like, find something to do that's like community related, and so I don't know why I did this, but I did this. I started this strength training class for I guess seniors. I don't think it was women, but it was seniors. And I didn't get paid for any of it, but they all, like, gave me, tons of tips at the end, like this card with money. And I was just like, wow. And while I was doing that, like training them at a young age, I connected with them, and I started to learn, like, if I have control of my body and my strength, I can control anything. I can control my future, my destiny, and so this whole, like, fitness thing always kept following me. I mean, to this day, when I went to Virginia, I taught classes, when I came back, and and that's also like my motivation, because not every day I feel like, getting up and taking care of myself. But I'm always like, okay, if there's one thing in your life you can control, that's that. Why wouldn't you control that? And so, in an odd way, I feel like that was like some kind of weird guidance of teaching me that I control things in my life, and I can make that change. I mean, that doesn't speak directly to, some of the things that I went through. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I went through depression. I bawled my eyes out. I was at some very, very low points in my life. But at some point, after I had my kids, that probably was the turning point as well. Like, I had to do it for my kids. I'm all they had. And so I have to make it, and I have to make it good enough to raise them and give them a good life and show them what they can have. And so I think that ultimately ended up being my motivation, and it still is my motivation. I make decisions with, what are my daughters going to think? Or what if they were at this decision? Like, I need to do what I would want them to do.
That's really good.
So, yeah.
Really good.
Now the fun stuff. Okay. What is a concert or event that you'll never forget?
So, I just recently shared a memory from this on Facebook, but for my 40th birthday, I went to a Kid Rock concert, and it was just awesome. Like, one, celebrating that I was 40. I love Kid Rock. So I think that's a concert that I'll always remember. I don't know what I'm going to do for 50, but I'll do something.
That's fun. Okay. What's a snapshot of an ordinary moment in your life that brings you great joy?
So right now I have 3 dogs at my house. 1 is my own and 2 are my daughter's. And so that's, one thing that is, they're always there when I get home. They're there when I go to bed. And they bring me joy, they bring me frustration and, stuff sometimes, but I love them. There's 2 rescues, and I love the fact that we're providing, a home and a life for them. And so that's a snapshot, I guess, if that answers your question.
That's good. Okay. And the last one is, it just slipped me. Give me 1 second. I was like, just had my eyeballs on it. Oh, what's one thing people often get wrong about you?
I don't think people know that I have a sense of humor. I'm pretty I guess dominant at work. But I love to have fun. I love to laugh, and I think I'm pretty funny. My kids probably don't think I am. But I would say that.
That's good.
I think you're pretty funny.
All right.
Yeah.
That's all that counts. That's all that matters.
That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us. This has been really nice. I'd loved hearing your story. I always love to get to know KJ's friends. And so now I feel like you're my friend. So I loved your story.
Well, thank you for what you guys are doing. I mean, because it's awesome and it's inspiring. And I have absolutely loved to watch KJ grow in this last few years. It's amazing. And the transformation is just so inspiring. So I thank you guys, because you are changing lives and following a path that I think that you were meant to be on. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
That's so sweet. Thank you. Thank you. So listen, this has been amazing, incredible. I appreciate your time.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving us your time.
Hey, you guys, we just want to say thank you today. We want to thank our listeners and those of you that have subscribed to the Simple Conversations podcast. Friends, thanks.
Hey y'all, this is KJ from Simple Conversations Where Grace Meets Strength. Thank y'all so much for listening and tuning in. If it weren't for y'all, there would be no reason for us to do this. Listen, we need your help. We need your support. So head on over to patreon.com/Simple Conversations and decide exactly how you want to be involved. For $5 a month, you would get access to behind the scenes content. For $25 a month, you would get that as well as a shout out on the podcast or fan input. As a supporter for $50 a month, you would get all that in the previous two tiers, as well as a one-time gift or book that Alice and I have read or are reading that we think would add value to your life. Or for $100 a month, we consider you family. You ever heard that before? That's friends that are so good that we consider you family. So you would get everything in the previous three tiers, as well as exclusive branded merchandise from Simple Conversations. So listen, our heart's desire is to do more and to be more. And so in order for us to do that, we need help. And so we're dependent on you to help us make that happen. So thanks for tuning in and thanks for your support. See y'all.